Good morning. You just unmuted yourself, Tiffany. So I'm going to have you, because
Sure. So
I have a little pre-assessment for you this morning. So you have to participate.
Okay.
Why are Oregon schools requiring screening for dyslexia?
because if you can catch dyslexia early, there's a lot better chance of helping those kids later on. And many times those dyslexia things aren't, sometimes kids can hide it in those early years. And once they get to third or fourth grade, it's almost not too late, but it's much, much harder to make those connections in their brain so that they can read. So screening in the early years helps to get the help that they need early on rather than waiting.
Bonda, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope, that sounded good. Is this the first year that we've been doing first grade screening for dyslexia
I think
in our district?
I mean, I can remember several years ago, the dyslexia committee I don't remember exactly how that process went.
I was with Jennifer Hannon during that time and went to the dyslexia class in Portland. And
Right.
at the time it had to be done in kindergarten, and first grade was just if there was a student showing any signs or you had any concerns, or if a kindergarten teacher that moved them on had concerns in any way in first grade.
Right.
But
Well, now there's a law. So why are we doing the screening? It's because there's the Oregon law requires that all kinder and first graders be screened once a year. There are 35 states now that have that law, specifically a law, and then like 47 states that have some sort of legislation around dyslexia. So very much to the forefront of catching this early, like you were saying, Tiffany. Okay, second question in our pre-assessment. What does the phrase "the science of reading" mean?
I've heard it all over internet and blogs and all that lately. But my guess is it's learning each sound that is there to put those sounds together and breaking words apart into syllables and phonemes and to read, rather than relying on sight words and other.
Using strategies, the different strategies.
Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about the science of reading, because yeah, it's definitely one of those phrases that we're hearing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then my third pre-assessment question is, so if a student after you've done a screening has low scores, does it mean that they have dyslexia?
Not necessarily.
Good. Okay, so Tiffany, so you went through that screening, that training with Jennifer. What else goes after we've done the screening? Then what else needs to happen?
Well, I mean, you have to just continue to gauge and watch them in your classroom and see where they're at. And you can, although it's a touchy situation, you can also ask family if there is a history of it in their family, because dyslexia is hereditary.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to happen this year. I think Leslie has, we'll go through the screening this fall of all K-1 students, but then after that experience, then she'll be asking everybody for input and how do we proceed with the process. And that also includes, because I said, well, once we do the screening, are we just turning it over to SPED teachers? And she said, no, well, care team students will continue to monitor. We interview families, the whole process of how do we identify if a student has dyslexia or not. So, okay, now that our brains are thinking dyslexia, I have my handy dandy little definition of dyslexia here on the screen. Did you access the handout that I included?
I opened it somewhere.
Yeah. I printed it off.
Thank you, Vonda.
My other screen, my screen's not in a good spot. There we go.
Because I do have this definition of dyslexia there, as well as just some handy dandy little things that I thought would be good for you to remember and to pass on to others as you meet with other K-1 teachers. But dyslexia then, specific learning disability, and just that label makes parents crazy. But understanding that it's a neurobiological issue, it's not, doesn't have anything to do with IQ or
I'll
if you're
mute.
smart or not
Oh,
smart,
on your screen.
but it's neurobiological in origin, characterized by difficulties with accurate and or fluent word recognition, by poor spelling and decoding abilities. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in a phonological component of language. So phonological. So I went deep into what does that mean? So we're going to take a look at that. That is often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities, and then this is what I have underlined, the provision of effective classroom instruction. So teaching a kid from now until the cows come home, and they're still not getting it. So what's getting in their way? And what I'm learning is, when we talk about the autism spectrum, there seems to be a spectrum of dyslexia too, from a little dyslexic to, very dyslexic. So even with effective classroom instruction, that something gets in their way. So here's Oregon's dyslexia law. Measures of all of the following areas at least once per year in kindergarten: phonological awareness, letter sound correspondence, and rapid naming. And I look at that and go, okay, fine, I get it. And then for first grade, phonological awareness, letter sound correspondence, rapid naming.
Oops, she's frozen.
Uh-huh.
Law with what STAR is offering. And I was actually on the ground floor when the law passed, and we have STAR Early Literacy, which actually measures some of these things, but it doesn't do some of the other things. And so then it's Renaissance was scrambling to try and meet the letter of the law and then what they've come up with. So I wanted to take a look at why did Oregon include these things, and what do these things mean? And then how did Renaissance meet these needs? So we're going to look at the what and then the how of meeting Oregon's dyslexia law. So phonological awareness are those, Tiffany, you were talking about this, phoneme segmentation and blending, and actually STAR Early Literacy measures some of these things. Onset and rhyme, and in and those kinds of things. So you can already get how a student is doing with this from STAR Early Literacy. You know how to break that down. So that aspect is already there after you do that screening. So we've had that capability with STAR Early Literacy, the phoneme segmentation, the blending, the onset, the rhyme. But what STAR Early Literacy didn't do was the rapid automatic naming task. And so that I didn't really understand what that has to do with dyslexia. The ability to recall those specific sounds, like seeing the color red and being able to rapidly say red. And it's amazing when you watch a video of a kid being able to do that versus a kid not being able to do that. So they see red and they know that it's red, but being able to conjure up that word from their brains. And that's what STAR was missing, was this rapid naming piece. So there's actually 2 different rapid naming tasks, assessments that are included now in the CBM assessments. And then also this letter sound association. And this is where the science of reading comes in, that in our language, when you see an R, that you understand that it's an sound. And that's where the science of reading comes out. So if you've got your handout, I have the definition of the science of reading at the top of the second page. Oh, yeah, okay, so I didn't include it here. So I want you to take just a moment to read that little definition of the science of reading, if you would, please. I read a book a couple summers ago on the science of reading, and I have to say it was mind-boggling. I actually sent a little synopsis to all of the principals and said, here, you've got to understand this, that our brains it's not a natural thing. And so the return to being able to understand and teach phonics really is pretty critically important, as is the screening for dyslexia. Any questions on that science of reading, anybody? Okay, then. Something else that is kind of addressed by STAR CBM, but not exactly, is something that the dyslexia experts screen for, called a non-word repetition. When I say a word that a student has never heard before, and if they're able to repeat it back or not, it's an assessment of their phonological memory and their ability. It's kind of like a short-term memory processing to be able to hear the sound, process the sound, and then repeat it back out again. So STAR CBM has a similar kind of assessment. It's not exactly this non-word repetition, but I have a little video that I wasn't going to play today, but if you want to see an audiologist doing this non-word repetition, a student who can do it and a student who can't do it, it's really quite interesting. I'm assuming that this is going to be available to you, the PowerPoint, if you want to do it later. But it all has something to do with being able to process neurobiologically sounds using that short-term memory and being able to produce those sounds. So STAR CBM reading assessments, and on your handouts then is an explanation of each of these assessments. CBM stands for curriculum-based measures. So there's letter naming, letter sounds, phoneme segmentation, receptive nonsense words, which is like that assessment that I was just talking about, expressive nonsense words, passage oral reading, which measures oral reading fluency, and then that rapid automatic naming in both colors and pictures. So there are 6 assessments for kinders and 6 assessments for first graders, each taking a minute. Each administered one-on-one. Derek was asking me prior to us starting, can it be used with second graders? Absolutely. Or a third grader who's still stumbling to help diagnose? Yes. So these CBM assessments can be used for any student, but all K1 students then will be assessed using these 6 assessments. And by the way, there's math assessments too. Did you notice these last year on your, when you signed into the home place on your Renaissance screen, your STAR assessment screen? Did you see the little CBM? Did anybody play with it at all? Did you notice it? Anyway, there are some math assessments.
At one point, but I never did anything with it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so there are some math assessments there too. Not required in the dyslexia screening, but just know that it's there. So when you sign into Renaissance, there is where you go when you're going to do the assessment. So when you're going to assess students for the dyslexia, you start with the STAR CBM reading link. And then your whole list of students will appear. So when you click on that link that says STAR CBM, your list of students would appear, and then the tests that you need to give will appear across from their names. So when you want to administer, for instance, Bella, if you want to administer letter naming, then you would simply just click on letter naming, and the instructions on administering letter naming will pop up in front of you, and you'll have little Bella sitting right next to you, and you administer the test.
So I just clicked into my Renaissance real quick, and it still has all my students from last year.
Right. So I don't know the timeline. I emailed Leslie, I don't know, probably over the weekend, and said that at some point this week, we need to assign the product to teachers. So I don't know on the list of tasks that need to be done this week when that's going to happen. So it should be happening soon, but I don't know when that's going to happen, because yeah, I can get in, but obviously I can't project the names of students live because that's confidentiality. But this year's products have not yet been assigned to teachers. It will be very soon. It's on the list of things to do.
Jara, I have a question.
Yes,
This is Sandra. I don't know if you can see me.
I see you.
Okay. How are you thinking that this will roll out in the classroom for the teacher to be able to give the assessment? When are we going to do this? Or I just don't, if you're in, especially if you're in just a first grade class or a K class,
Right.
how are you going to make the time? What are the other kids going to be doing?
I know.
That type of thing.
I know. Here's my understanding.
Okay.
So when the screening window opens for your regular screening, so your STAR early literacy window, that will be administered first. And then still within the same screening window,
Uh-huh.
trying to get all these dyslexia screenings done. So 6 minutes plus the administration time per kid. So somebody else was asking me, can we have an aide do it? Yes. When I asked Leslie, she said, as long as they've been trained.
Mhm.
So I think that would mean watching this video because it's being recorded.
Mhm.
If I could interrupt Sandra for a minute, we have our special ed assistant is on this video today.
Okay.
So we could either switch and have her take your class while you do the test, or she could give it,
Okay.
or a combination.
Mhm.
Because Jara, and I don't know if anyone else agrees. I mean, I think this is great and I'm looking forward to giving it. I just feel like I would like to see the results first and see how the kids are answering, especially the first time around, just so I can wrap my head around it.
Mhm.
You know, but if we can get some assistants, you know, trained as well, you know, I always want to be the one doing it, and we can't always be the one doing it. So I do get that.
Right. And you know, this is the first time through. I mean, I was in on the development of the test for the state of Oregon.
Oh,
I
cool.
never administered this.
Okay.
So
I'm wondering if you said we do early literacy first, why don't we take, just an idea is take those high ones who evidently are probably already readers and have an assistant practice with those kids, because they're not the ones that are at risk,
Right.
but all the first graders have to be screened anyway. So that
That's a
might be a
great
way to
idea.
proceed.
I like that. What do you think, Jara?
yeah, yes, practice is good. When I was doing assessments in my reading intervention classes, I always had my teaching assistant do one assessment and I did another one, so that we could get reliable results. Like she always did the IRI and I always did the ORF. But with this, your instructions are given online to you, you know, in front of you on the laptop. So if who's ever administering the test is reading the instructions as it comes on their screen, then we can be sure that the test is being administered reliably and you know, with validity.
Right.
So
Okay. Yeah.
it's not
Okay.
warping or you know, somehow affecting the results. But I like that idea, Lisa, that practice on kids that you are pretty sure are dyslexic.
That are readers. Yeah.
Well, and then
That's-
it's just important for the teacher to observe what's going on with the kids who are struggling.
Mhm.
Like, you really need to observe the behavior of those kids during
Yes.
the test. So the teacher would want to pull those kids who you're really worried about.
Mhm.
And that would be less time out of the classroom.
Right. And you are allowed at the end of each test to enter some notes on kids. So I know, and Leslie and I've talked about, you know, where a teacher's going to find the time to do this. Obviously, after the process is done, the committee, the dyslexia committee, are going to look at, you know, how did it go? What do we need to do? Do we need more time? Maybe we should be doing this in November as opposed to September, or you know, how did the process go? What do we need to do? How can we do it better? It's a great tool. It's a
Absolutely.
fabulous tool. You know, developed very carefully.
Mhm.
But how do we best implement
Yeah, we
it?
got to jump in somewhere.
That's right. So we're
Yeah.
jumping in, and it's going to be, you know, like everything this year.
A little messy.
So, so yeah, Sandra, we've all, yeah, yes.
It's okay. I mean, I know we need something like this. And so I know we'll make it work. I just was curious how you thought it would kind of play out in the classroom. So thank you.
Yeah, that I always loved the one-on-one time, and somehow, you know, we made it work, but
Yeah.
having an assistant available so that you can have that one-on-one time is important.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how you work it out with your principal, with your teaching assistant, that's good.
Okay.
So
So-
can I just ask, can I ask one question? So
Yes.
you're saying this does have to be completed during the September window?
That's what Leslie would like.
So question, if special ed often doesn't start up for a couple weeks, is there any way to spring some of those folks to work on, again, the kids that we're concerned about? Just throwing it out there. And then I also have
Extra
another
help.
question. Does the whole test get administered at once, or you're going to go through that as soon as we quit talking?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, you've got, what is it, 6 segments to the test? Is that
Yes.
is that all administered in one session?
It's totally up to you.
What's the best practice?
I've
How
not
long
read.
does the whole thing take, do you think?
Well, again, since I haven't actually physically done it,
Oh, okay.
The-
So we might
the-
be finding out.
yeah, the instructions are very simple.
Did you say at one point they're supposed to be a minute each? Is that what?
Yeah,
I thought I-
they're a minute
I-
each.
Okay, so maybe
Um,
10 minutes or
Oh.
15 minutes.
So they're a minute each. There are obviously a few instructions. Getting the kid ready. There's a little be ready screen, and I'll show you what that looks like. So the administration, so, you know, is there a minute of preparation and then a minute of giving it? You know, so would it take like 12 minutes to do 6 minutes of the test? I would say, you know, you should probably think, yes, you should probably think 12 minutes to get through this. Some of your kids could probably march right through it. Some of your kids might need to do 2 and then be done, and then 2.
Yeah.
And so, and you know, are you going to know your kids well enough to be able to determine that? You know, we're just doing the best we can.
We can
And
do it.
take notes and be ready to talk about your experience.
I'm wondering if you could run each of your kids through one segment, like you pull a kid back to do, like if you're just doing the first pretest,
Just all letter
maybe
naming.
you just run that kid through, send them back to their desk, and then run the next kid through that same one, run them all through the same thing at once, and then take a couple days to get through that. That might be a
Yep.
little quicker and easier to keep the little ones doing something,
Right. Like
Mhm.
coloring or something.
rather than spending 15 minutes with one. You just
Mhm.
pull them back for 1 minute or 2 minutes
Mhm.
and send them
Right.
back to their desk. I don't know.
Yeah, totally up to you to decide how to do that.
Okay.
That might be
Emma?
interesting to compare how each one of them do on the same exact section too.
True.
And I think after you're finished with the process, each of you being able to contribute what your experience was, what worked well, what didn't work well. That's what I think Leslie is looking forward to. Notice please, before we leave this particular screen, you know, one, this is where it automatically records the scores, and I'll show you how it figures those scores. But at the top of the screen, you can see that the tests, the assessments, letter naming, letter sounds, phoneme segmentation are here, but then the rapid automatic naming, you have to click on a different button to make that test appear. So 5 of the tests come from this screen. The automatic rapid naming comes from a different screen. You see where that little button is up here at the top where it says rapid automatic naming.
Are Okay.
So I have a little video here of the passage reading, which is near and dear to my heart because I love ORF. I think it's a valuable tool. And it also shows you how the instructions appear on the teacher screen.
Today we're going to assess in STAR CBM reading. This is our STAR record book, and we are going to screen Alex in passage oral reading as indicated by the software. We will start or print the assessment, and we have 3 options for assessing.
Now, you wouldn't do
Today we're
this
going to
with
model
your
the
kids.
online assessment.
She's showing you how to
Start
do the
results.
assessment.
Mhm.
When we select that, we get a prompt to tell
You'd already have
Alex
it figured out.
to log in to the CBM app.
Say that again?
So
Would you already have it that figured out? The setting, the setup and all that?
Right. And I'll show you
select
that.
the STAR CBM tile. Now he gets a message to get ready. I can hit continue and I can see that Alex is ready to go. Then I hit begin. We're both ready to go and I've already read the instructions to him. And it starts in 3, 2, 1.
Tap, tap, tap. I was reading a book, but I kept hearing a noise at the window. Tap, tap. I began reading again. Clunk, scrap, tap. I looked out of the window. It was dark outside. I could not see anything. I looked back at my book. It was hard to find my place again. I found it and began to read. I heard the noise again. This time, I was not going to stop reading. I didn't want to lose my place again. Clunk, scrape.
Great, and so we finished the timer. I click the last item that he attempted and he's finished. So his screen shuts down. We get done. He gets a message that he has completed his assessment and I have the score on my side for his assessment.
So you saw the instructions on the screen, and then he gets a notice that he's ready. She gets a notice that she's ready, and then she just clicks begin. And then she clicks whichever words that the child missed when he was reading. She clicks the last word when the minute is up, and then it automatically figures out how many words per minute based upon how many words he got correct. And then it records it on that screen. It's really very slick. And which can be used with your 3rd graders and 4th graders, Lisa.
Okay.
Is it kind of like a running record, kind of?
Yes.
Did you say that you can also insert some notes in there?
Yes, and I've got a little slide.
Okay, well, I'll wait for it, but I just was curious. And then does it record any kind of accuracy or it's just going to do words per minute?
It will give you details of how many words the child missed. So read this many words,
Okay.
missed this many words for how many words per minute they got correct.
So we can figure accuracy and put it in the notes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it will be there. And that's what's good about the CBM measures. When they take early literacy, you never see what they got right and what they got wrong. You can get a report, but you don't know the actual questions. Whereas on CBM, you can go in and see exactly what they got right, what they got wrong, and the record of all those details is there. So and the ability to make notes is also there.
So if they self-correct, do you unclick what I'm sure it addresses in there, if they go back and fix what they,
Yes, yes.
Yeah, like he went back and corrected one of his words. So we have to
Yes.
fix that, or it will automatically fix it.
You would unclick the word. So
Okay.
if you
Okay.
clicked it, then you would click it again and it would.
Okay,
Yes. So she showed you in the little video that there are 3 ways to administer the assessment. You can do it online, which is what she was doing. They were side by side with their tablets or laptops. You can do it with your laptop and print if that was a good way to administer to a particular child. They needed, the piece of paper in front of them, or you can both do the print form. If the child is doing a print form, then you would grade it and then enter the number, whatever they got correct, yourself onto the screen. If you do the online form, it does it all for you. And you're able to administer remotely if you need to.
oh, that's cool.
So if you do the print form, then make sure you get the right ID form, so you get the right answers if you're correcting it.
So could
ahead.
you print it out? Could you print the passage out and then also and then just be doing your notes on it, but have the other one running where it
Yes,
self-corrects?
yes,
You know what I mean? Okay.
yes. And I would probably do that.
Yeah, I mean, just that
That
kind of would be easier.
That's
Well, I don't
probably-
know. It's going to be good. It'll be good.
I would do it. I'd probably do both,
Okay.
because I've always done ORF on a piece of paper, but then, I'm old, so whatever.
Okay.
I'm just old.
Whatever your comfort level is, I think.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Jared,
And again,
this is Sherry. Sorry, I just had a quick question or something. As I'm seeing this, I'm actually, even though this is considerably more time consuming than STAR Early Lit, STAR Reading, STAR Math, obviously STAR Math's math, but this is actually to me a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Quality assessment, because so
Valuable.
many kids just click multiple choice. And so I always do running records with my kids on a regular basis, and as well as other things to track their progress, because I feel like STAR is just not always reliable. Is there any possibility that we will have something like this? I mean, I know this is crazy time consuming, but I would rather this than do everything I'm doing already in my classroom plus STAR, you know what I mean? Having to do both. Is there any talk with the district about having something like this being done 3 times a year versus like the STAR Reading or STAR Math that's completely multiple choice? Sorry, I should leave STAR Math out of it. That's math. But that was just a quick question. I don't know if that's been talked about.
I think until we get through this first round, and then because we're just using STAR 3 times this year, more as a how is our curriculum addressing the needs of our students versus using STAR to make instructional decisions for the classroom. Because as we work towards using formative assessments in our classrooms, that's the direction for this year, writing those formative assessments and using that kind of data. So that's all I really know.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. I just wanted to ask about that.
Also, do we do this just once or each time that a STAR window is open?
We're doing it just once.
Okay.
So
Can we do it more if we want? Like, can we do it in
Yeah.
other windows just to see? Okay.
So it's obviously a very good tool. But as we've pointed out, it's a time-consuming tool. And as Derek and I were talking, can we use it for older kids when we have students who are still stumbling And they obviously, there's something in their way, you know, can we use this to help us to figure out what's going on with, you know, a second grader, a third grader, a fourth grader? Yes, you know,
I would, yeah.
it's a tool.
Yeah.
So we're required once a year to screen all K1. That's the law. Can we use this tool in other ways at other times of the year? Absolutely. So with the online administration, if in this case we're going to test Lucas, you're just clicking on the test that you're going to use. You can start the assessment, or you can ask it to print the assessment. It's up to you. And then you can see when you're finished with Lucas or Elijah, the score then appears, how many letters they got correct in 1 minute. If the color is green, that means they have met the standard. If it's red, it means they're definitely not meeting the standard. So the color coding doesn't match the red, yellow, blue, green of STAR assessments. But basically there's a green for good, a red for in trouble, and then there is a kind of halfway in between. We need to be kind of watching the kid. So it is color coded for you. So it gives you the opportunity to select online, mixed format, or print as you're getting ready to administer. For the online passage reading, it's not available for kindergarten. It is available for first grade. You have to administer first grade to first graders when you're doing the screening. But if you have a student who is reading at a second grade level or a third grade level, and you want to assess them at a different time using a different passage, you can change the level of the passage, but not for this actual first screening. Everybody has to read at their grade level.
Jera, how high do those grade levels go? Was that just up to third?
It goes up to sixth grade.
Oh, it does. Great. Okay.
Yep. And yeah, I would be using it if I were up to sixth grade. It was a screening that I always did paper format with my students. There is the option of audio recording these. We are not using the audio recording functionality of STAR CBM this year. I asked Leslie, and we're not going to go there. So don't record your students as they're doing this. So when the student signs on, they will have the option of doing STAR reading, STAR math, STAR Spanish. Make sure that they're clicking the orange, the corner, the little button with the orange corner for STAR CBM, and then they'll get the message, get ready. And you saw that happen in the little video. So rapid naming kind of looks like this. Rapid color naming and rapid picture naming. Students will see practice items first. They'll get to practice using their mouse pads, or to be able to click. You want to see if they know how to click, and at this point hopefully most kids do. And then if they are able to actually click something, then you'll be able to continue. Great job, let's keep going. And this is recommended by every single dyslexia expert, this rapid naming piece. Receptive nonsense words. The practice involves a real word. Click on the word horse, or click on the picture for horse. And so the student actually practices clicking before you begin some nonsense words like slive or I can't even come up with some. Here's passage oral reading, which you saw an example of and see the instructions. Hand the student form to the child and say, or you can just, if they're on their screen, I would like you to read the story aloud to me. Please start here. Begin. Stop. You worked hard. So, is it even going to take a minute to get ready, to get the student ready? Not necessarily. And I think you'll get good. So maybe it won't take a minute to administer. It might take a minute for the kid to get to you from his desk, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then click begin, and there'll be a 3-second countdown. And it will begin. This is letter naming. P, B, H, A. And if they get it wrong, you click on it.
Oh, cool.
Jared, do you know how this works with iPads?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Michelle. What do you mean?
Well, so that with iPads, you don't have a cursor. So do they have to touch each letter or?
Here they're just naming it. They're just saying it. So you are the only one that would be touching something if they get it wrong. On the rapid naming, again, they're saying it out loud and you would be touching. On the one where they were practicing, so they would just be touching the screen.
Be interesting to know if that messes up, like maybe we need it on paper if they're going to be using their finger to read along, if that's going to.
Interesting. Interesting. What does some of the rest of you think? Would paper be easier?
I don't know. I don't know if it would be moving if it was on their screen. If you were doing it, it would move probably.
So on the ones where they are responding orally, like on this one, they're just responding orally, and the only thing that you would be, you're doing the clicking.
The clicking. Uh-huh.
But on the ones where they're doing the touching,
It'd be nice to do this with a demo student and just have them, you know, that's something we need to do on our end before we're asking all of these kids to do something.
That's a really good idea. So going back with Lisa's idea of practicing with students that you know are readers, and then you can decide maybe which ones would be better on print versus using tablets.
Hey, Jara, can I ask, I want to ask on top of that. So we could print, because as we're discussing here, you don't want to be clicking while the student is trying to rapidly name, right?
Again, I'm not understanding.
I don't think they'll hear you clicking though.
Oh.
But they get one screen and we get another screen.
Yeah.
So they touch their screen and we click our screen.
We click our screen, right?
Jara. So I'm trying to picture in my mind how I would run this with an iPad. And I guess my bottom line question is, can we print out the little color naming and the letter naming as kindergartners and hand them a paper copy so their little grubby paws are on it and we're clicking, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because in an iPad, if we're sharing an iPad and they're reading those letters and we're trying to click them as they're reading on the same screen.
Oh, no, you'd be on two separate.
Okay, I'm just clarifying in my head the way.
Yeah, no, you'd be on two separate iPads.
Yeah.
They would be coordinated. So that's why you've got the little begin button so that your two iPads are
and that's if the signal works and not everybody's doing it at the same time and you hold up one leg, you grab it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. But that's why, you click on the kid's name and then you click on the test and then they get the little message that they're ready to begin and you get the message that you're ready to begin. And so the two iPads should be talking to each other. But yes, you can print like the rapid naming in color and they can be touching it. And then somebody else brought up the idea that if the student hears you clicking, how many that they get wrong, does that then freak them out? And I have to say, when I was doing ORF, I always tried to very carefully mark words so they didn't see how many words I was marking wrong, because psychologically that can freak them out. So if you're touching versus clicking so that they don't know, I don't know, you just have to try that out. And what we'll do,
like if I were to make a paper copy for my students, but I had obviously individual, like maybe I wanted to use my laptop or an iPad to record their responses, is each student's test different?
Thank you, Tiff.
there are different forms. My understanding is that there are different forms.
I would need to print out a new paper for every student. I couldn't use a master. I couldn't do letter naming K and use that for all my students. And then when I brought it up on my computer, would it be the same for every student, or do I need a new copy for each student?
That's a really good question. My understanding is there are different forms.
Okay.
And so would you need a different paper for each student? Tiffany, that's a really good question. Let me see if I can find the answer to that. Like I said, I know there's different forms, but are there 3 different forms or are there 36 different forms? I don't know the answer to that. Let me see if I can find the answer, because I don't know.
Thank you, Jara.
Thank you.
And when you're talking about the clicking sound, are you talking about your mouse clicking or clicking on the screen, the teacher?
So if
Sound
I
wise.
were using my laptop, I would be clicking. If I were using a tablet, I'd be touching.
Yeah. So I don't know if the noise is going to be a big deal.
You could also just use your pad on your laptop and just,
Yeah.
hit it with
I'm
your
thinking
finger
it'll be
and
okay.
not be clicking a mouse.
Right.
Yeah.
So just as you're trying to envision
Mhm.
administering these tests, it's good. It's good that you're processing these things.
I have a question. Is this going to kind of take over our report cards where we have to do our sight words and our nonsense words? Can we use it?
Wow.
I'm just saying it would be one less thing to have to do.
Oh, that's a really good question.
I don't know if anyone else, cares about that, but that might be kind of nice.
That might be kind of nice. I'll ask that question too.
Okay.
And use CBM results. Okay.
Also, I clicked into my students from last year and answered my own question and just pretended I was going to give an assessment to 3 kids, and it brought up 3 different order of letters. Like I just clicked on letter naming. And so
Good job, Tiffany.
you have to have a new one for each kid. You'd have to,
Okay.
if you wanted to do that.
Okay.
So hopefully, Vonda, that doesn't mess you up. I'm assuming when these kids get into your class, it'll all be reset, but it says in progress right now. I'll help you if you need it.
You probably just messed up the whole school year, Tiffany. Oh.
I'll help you, Vonda, if you need it.
And it's probably random, so you can't
Yeah.
really print them ahead. So that's kind of dead in the water.
Okay. Let's see. We've talked about this. When the time runs out, you just click on the last word that the student read, and it will figure out your words per minute. Receptive nonsense words. This is the teacher would say salve, and the student would try and pick out the word salve. I was trying to envision kindergartners doing this.
Their screen won't look like this though. Right?
No,
Okay.
their screen would just have
Just the 3 words, right?
3 choices, right?
Or the three choices.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and, you know,
They
I'm
might
not,
do it.
pardon?
They might be able to do it.
They might.
I don't
Yeah.
think they will be
I
able to
mean-
in September. They could maybe in the January window. But
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be a lot of red flags for September window.
right, right. And that's why we started with, just because the student has a low score doesn't necessarily mean that they are dyslexic. And, you know, it doesn't. And you're right. By January, when they've had some teaching,
Yeah.
would their score be completely different? And that might be, again, a recommendation for when the committee gets together. Maybe we need to do this in January for kinders when they've had a little bit more introduction to letters, as opposed to September. So
Hey, Jared, can I ask another question?
we're just practicing.
Yeah.
Is there a dummy student that we can play with?
No,
Practice student.
no. In the past, before we had the single sign-on, we could do that, but we can't do that anymore.
Can Charmin Ross be a student?
Say that again?
Can Charmin Ross be a student? A 5-year-old? My husband says I'm like one.
No,
I would
because
just take someone that you know is a reader and maybe do them. That's what I would do. Someone that's,
so
Say if our rosters haven't been updated, if you have a student that's moved or something too, and still on your roster, you could do that as a practice. I mean, if they've already moved outside the district. I know we have a few that have, you know, changed plans or changed course. You could do that.
that's interesting. Since your rosters haven't been updated yet, and if you know a student has moved outside of the district, that might be a way to,
like, try it this week
Play.
or try it today.
yeah. Because you certainly can't use a current student, but if you know somebody has left the district and you sign in, because we used to be able to create practice students, but with a single sign-on, it all has to go through LBL and it's, yeah, we can't do it anymore. But Sherry, that's an awesome idea. Find somebody that's left the district and
Yeah.
play.
Yeah. I am sorry, I have to go because we have another meeting here, a staff meeting, so I have to be at, but I will watch the rest of this and then.
Oops. Yeah, it is 9:00 and I knew there was going to be lots of questions. So those of you who need to go. And we've hit the vast majority of how to administer this. And I love the way you guys are processing how this is going to happen when you actually have kids in front of you.
Right.
Yes.
You're gonna send out the copy of this video because we have to go to.
Derek will be.
Yeah,
and I know he's still listening. And I will make a PDF of the rest of the PowerPoint and get that to you as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
So
Yeah.
we do have the, real quick, we've got the link to the exit ticket is in the chat. And then we will be posting these to YouTube here in the coming days and we'll send the video out.
Okay,
But please check out the exit ticket link in the chat as well.
okay, thank you. Ready, guys?
Yeah.
Go to the chat.
I was just trying to show you some examples of the tests.
Oh, okay.
And for instance, in the most assessments, it will just ask you to click the last item that the student answered, because then it helps. Because the number that you get on the screen of how they did is how many that they got correct in a minute.
Mm.
And so, you know, that's the number that happens.
Mhm.
And most of yours, of course, will be in person, but there is the opportunity to do it remote. And then there's the question, what if they finish the entire test before the 60 seconds is up? And it actually will figure out if the tests were longer, how many words or how many items they would get correct. And it will go ahead and project that. So it has doing it. So if the kid does go ahead and finish the test in under a minute, it will project ahead what the student would get had there been more items.
Cool.
So it's all color coded. Under green, the kid did fine. Red, the kid didn't do fine. And blue would be student needs some watching. And Tiffany said that she had signed on. I just wanted to show you very quickly, when you sign on to us, to your Renaissance Place and Star CBM, and you hit the little help button, you know, all the stuff that I showed you is here.
Oh,
And the one thing that I wanted you to see on here under resources, when you want to know how did my kid do besides green or red,
mhm.
what does it mean? How many words per minute should a first grader be reading?
Mhm.
How many letters should a kindergartner be getting? Right there under research and references is the benchmark table. So for those of you whose brains want to know more about
Well, my name's always misspelled. It's
Mhm.
how well did my kid really do? I always did this as goal setting with my students. Here's what a 7th grader should be reading. Here's how many words per minute a 7th grader should be reading.
Mhm.
So how many words per minute do you want to be reading by January? So under Star CBM, under help, under resources, you'll find this benchmark table, because inquiring minds like mine always want to know. And then, yeah, answers to a lot of your questions. Correct per minute scores and how they are adjusted. So when the kid finishes,
Should I submit anything else you guys
time,
say on there?
it explains how it does that. So over here, it should be able to answer the vast majority of your questions. Oh, let me talk about the details here. Once a student has finished, I told you earlier that, you know, on early literacy, it'll give you a printout of the assessment of how they did in different categories, but you don't get to see exactly what they missed and what they didn't miss. Here, you can click the kid's name, click the score, click details, and it will actually show you then, remind you, I mean, you gave the test, but then 3 weeks later, if you want to go back and look to see what they got right and what they got wrong, you can click details and it will show you, which is a great plus that you didn't get in early literacy that you do get in the CBM.
That's cool.
So yes, you get to give, well, or if your assistant is giving the test and then you want to go in
I'm gonna
and
look at it.
how the student did, you get to see those details.
Mhm.
So you can click on the student, click on their score, click on details, and it will show you, which is a wonderful thing.
Oh,
These are the tests. And then there is a screen where it will put what they got in early literacy and then next to the scores. So it does synthesize early literacy and all the scores from CBM all in one screen, which is nice.
that's cool.
And that's it. So we were almost done.
That's great.
It is a great tool. And yes, you do have to figure out where you're going to find the time, but it's
We
a
can
good,
do it.
it's a good tool.
Yeah, we can do it.
You can do it.
Yeah.
And then, yes, Leslie is very interested in how it goes and then getting back together and making recommendations about how best to serve our students.
Yeah.
questions as you go along, shoot them my way. You still maintain my district email. Even though I do have the luxury of being retired. And I love it.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Getting up and being out and being dressed this morning is yeah.
Your pajamas on, huh?
I am dressed. I am dressed. Had a shower.
Mhm.
Sarah, when you talk about the committee, are we the committee? Or is there somebody else? Are there others that are the committee for this?
Well, I'm not sure. You know, I don't know if the committee is going to be the cohort that signed up for the letters training, if that's going to be the driving committee. I know that all of you are going to have input after you finish this process. But then, you know, it's kind of unwieldy to have all K-1 teachers to move forward. So I don't know what that process is going to be. I'm not sure that Leslie knows exactly what that process is going to be. But, you know, I would shoot her questions and she's like, you know, we're going to try it and see how it goes. We're just thrilled that the state of Oregon has approved the use of this tool because it does mesh with what we've already been using with the Start Early Literacy.
Nice.
We know how to use it. It's going to give us, synthesize the scores, and we'll see how it goes. So, and yeah, you can volunteer to be on whatever committee you want to, Vonda. Go for it.
Oh.
So Jara, as you're looking at like how to, if we print paper copies for our kids, are we able to change on the teacher end to choose the assessment? Rather, I mean, we can't just pull it up and then have to go run and print off something and then come back and administer it to the kid based on what it's popping up for which form for them to take.
So Michelle, there's options when you click on it. I would just go in and try one student from your class last year, because you'll have them again this year anyway, right?
Yeah.
So they may still be in there. So you can go in there and it will say assess now, print and assess later. And so you can you can print the paper. Like I've got papers that were pulled up in a PDF form. And then now on that name, it says in progress because I said assess later.
Okay.
So you could print the papers the day before, I believe. I don't know how long it will say that in progress. That's why I'm like, I hope I didn't mess up Vonda. Because right now, if I click on those students, it says in progress, but all those PDFs are still open on my thing to print.
So Jared, that's a question for you. What is the window that in progress stays? So if we do this now for our kinders, is it going to be there next week on Friday if we assess?
I bet you it stays open. I mean, just until
My guess is
you
though,
put their name again.
because they're going to reassign though, Michelle, your kinders to first grade. So
Yeah.
my thought is when my kindergarten class from last year goes to first grade with Vonda, it's probably going to wipe that out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Right. But that is a good question. As soon as the product does get assigned for this year, and you've got an extra half hour after school and you want to go ahead and print those things, how long does the in progress last? Like, you know, when you pause a test, the computer adaptive test, the early literacy, you have 8 days to finish it. So how long was the in progress? And so I will find that out. Is it 24 hours or is it 8 days?
I didn't know there was 8 days. Okay.
I will find that out. Yes, you can pause for 8 days. An early literacy test.
Because some kids you think we're done and they've done, and then you find out in the next window, oh, they never finished. So they start over.
Yeah, they figured 8 days. If a kid is really sick and they're out for, a week.
Makes
and they get
sense.
One more day, that's what they decided long ago, 8 days.
Okay.
What if that goes outside the window? Like, what if they start a test on the second to last day of the STAR window?
Mm.
And they're at home, they can't come back. Well, I guess now they would have their stuff, but in the future, they get sick for a week. And then they finish their test outside the window.
It only, from my point of view, when I'm running reports, it's important that students finish within the window because certain reports don't happen when students are outside the window. So as long as we're getting 95% of the kids inside the window, then it doesn't, we still get, a really good sampling. So when we have those occasional kids like that don't finish with, within the window, it's not horrible. You, the teacher, still get the test results. You still can use the data. You still get, an overall view of your student. So yes, we try to get kids finished within the window, but it's just important to you to have that data. So
yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you guys for this morning. Good luck.
Thank you.
So
Thank
glad
you very much.
Are able to have kids in person.
I know, exactly. All right. Okay. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Goodbye.